Take 2 of reading progress update video. Today is January 3rd, 2026. It is currently 4:01 p.m. In this video, I will be talking about books that I am currently reading and books I picked up from the library earlier this morning. The first book I wanted to talk about that is from the Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR is Beg, Borrow, or Steal, which is a reread. This was Sarah Adams' new release from last January. The final book in this series, which is called the Rome, Kentucky series, came out on Tuesday, December 30th. And me and Kathleen are very excited to read it for the From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR. The small town, Rome, Kentucky, that this book series is based in is very similar to Stars Hollow, Connecticut. This book focuses on Jack and Emily. In the first book, the male main character's name is Noah, and he has 3 sisters named Annie, Emily, and Maddie. Emily is the oldest sibling in this group of characters. She is a 2nd grade teacher, and Jack is a friend of hers from college who she hasn't been in touch with for a couple of years until Jack moves back to Rome to be a teacher at her school, and they have a lot of banter together about being teachers. That's really funny. But my favorite couple in this series is from the second book, Practice Makes Perfect, Will and Annie. Annie is the youngest sibling in this group of siblings, and the male main character is named Will, and he is very similar to Joey from Friends because he's a playboy who is very sweet and kind. And basically, what Will does in that book is help Annie out of her shell because she's shy and socially awkward and not very good with men. So it's kind of like, she's kind of like the modern version of Eliza Doolittle and My Fair Lady, come to think about it. Annie is. So, this is my second favorite book in this series after Practice Makes Perfect. So I am very excited to finish off this series and see what Maddie's relationship is like. Currently in my reread of Beg, Borrow, or Steal, I am on chapter 21. My first library book that I picked up today is Dragon Teeth by Michael Crichton. This is by the same author of Jurassic Park, but I'm pretty sure it's a standalone book from Jurassic Park because it focuses on dragons and not dinosaurs. Apparently, January 16th is International Love a Dragon Day, and that was the bookshelf at the library that this book was on this morning. So I picked it up. I gave Jurassic Park and The Lost World 4 stars when I read them in September, so I'm very excited to read this one. The next 2 books I purchased at Barnes & Noble's with a gift card that I got from my mother-in-law for Christmas. Everything's Coming Up Rosie by Courtney Walsh and Regretting You by Colleen Hoover. Regretting You came out with a movie in October, which Kathleen and I decided to watch and do a book-to-movie comparison in the fall, around the same time when we watch Reminders of Him. So I decided to get a jump start on reading this book. Colleen Hoover's books have really gotten mixed reviews from me. My least favorite probably has been It Ends With Us because it glorifies abusive relationships. Other books I have read by Colleen Hoover include Maybe Someday, which was 3.5 stars, Without Merit, which was 2.5 stars, All Your Perfects, which was 3.5 stars, Ugly Love, which was 3 stars, and Verity, which was 4.5. So far in Regretting You, I am on chapter 26, page 248. This book focuses on a mother-daughter relationship between Clara, Morgan Grant, and her 16-year-old daughter, Clara. There's a lot of family drama in this book because Clara's father is involved in a questionable and tragic accident. The heartbreaking and long-lasting consequences will reach far beyond just Morgan and Clara. While struggling to rebuild everything that crashed around them, Morgan finds comfort in the last person she expects, too, and Clara turns to the one boy who she's been forbidden to see, which, with each passing day, new secrets, resentment, and misunderstandings make mother and daughter fall further apart. So far apart, it might be impossible for them to ever fall back together. We mostly picked this book for the Friends and Gilmore Girls TBR because we're gonna watch the movie. I'm really not sure which character from Gilmore Girls Clara reminds me of. Probably Lane, because Mrs. Kim does not allow her to date Dave. Or maybe even Lorelai, because she doesn't really like Jess at first, and Jess is kind of a bad boy. And the guy that Clara dates, his name is Miller. He seems very similar to Jess in a lot of ways. So I guess the mother-daughter relationship could be similar to Lorelai and Rory in season 1, when she doesn't want to go to Chilton and she eventually meets Jess. Or it could be with her relationship with Fisher. It could be similar to Mrs. Kim not allowing Dave to date Lane. The next book from the Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR that I am reading is Everything's Coming Up Rosie by Courtney Walsh. This focuses on a girl named Rosie who's an actress. She gets a job and she thinks it's at a community theater, but it ends up being at a nursing home, and she is directing their production of Cinderella. I love this book. I have a personal connection to this story because I have been in a community production of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, which is the musical that Rosie directs in this book. And the senior citizens in this book kind of remind me of the characters in the Thursday Murder Club because of their sense of humor. I love Rosie as a character. She's really fun to follow the adventure of. This is my, fifth book by Courtney Walsh. I have read The Happy Life of Isadora Bentley. I have read The Summer of Yes. I have read My Lucky Charm. And I have read Christmas with a Crank. She has fast worked her way up in my ranking of favorite romance authors after Emily Henry, Abby Jimenez, and Taylor Jenkins Reid. At this point in this book, I am on page 215, chapter 24. I am anticipating 4.5 to 5 stars for this book. The next book is Us Against You, which is the third book in the second book in the Beartown trilogy by Friedrich Bachmann. This trilogy focuses on a junior hockey team in Sweden and how obsessed the community is with this hockey team. It connects to Gilmore Girls because the hockey team aspect of the plot reminds me of the hockey game that Ross, Joey, and Chandler go to watch in season 1, episode 4, the one with George Stephanopoulos. And the character in this book that I feel has a similar personality to a Friends character is Maya, because she's a musician like Phoebe, and also like Lane in Gilmore Girls. So there is an Enhance Your Book Club experiment in the back of this book that says, pick a theme or scene from the book to draw inspiration from and write 8 to 16 lines of lyrics for a song that capture the emotions. Look to Maya's songs in the book for examples. So I think I'm going to do that when I answer the rest of the discussion questions. I'm excited because I had a lot of fun with writing the song lyrics for my fan fiction that I self-published for the art show. Currently in Us Against You, I am on chapter 35, page 307, and I should finish this by Monday or Tuesday, and then I will return it to Kathleen. The next book I am reading further from Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR is Girl Interrupted by Susanna Kazin. This is a memoir of a woman who had a mental breakdown in the 1960s and had to go to a psychiatric hospital to get treatment. So this is basically her mental health journey and her recovery journey from her psychotic break. I just started this a couple of hours ago, and I am on page 54. So I found a list on Instagram on the Tuesday before Christmas about books that describe Friends characters. This book was paired up with Phoebe, and I think it was paired up with Phoebe because of all of the issues that she has with her family, specifically how she was abandoned by her father and how her mom committed suicide when she was 13. There is a dark fan theory related to Friends that Friends is actually Phoebe being an outsider looking in to Central Perk and observing Ross, Monica, Rachel, Chandler, and Joey, and wishing that she was part of the group. That is a very sad way to look at Friends. The fan theory I much prefer over that one is that the one that is related to the DVD box cover art for, I think it's season 4, when they're all together sleeping in bed and Rachel is the only one with her eyes opened. Because the events of Friends are basically her anxiety dream. The reason why I think that theory makes sense is because of the fact that Rachel goes through so much growth throughout the series, but she also goes through so much stress with her relationship with Ross, and that's where her anxiety mostly manifests from. This is from season 3 onward. And then she ends up marrying, she doesn't end up, they end up together at the end, which has always bothered me. So I am currently on page 54 in Girl Interrupted. The final book on the Manhattan to Stars Hollows TBR that I am reading is also on my TBR for Gabby Reese's Winterween Marathon, which starts on Friday, the 9th of January, and goes till the 16th. So I will be starting this book on Friday. So I can read it for the readathon. This is about a movie that is being filmed that is based on the Jane Austen books. I picked this for the prompt for Gabby's readathon for a backdated 2025 release. This book came out in September. I'm very excited to read it because I have been reading a lot of Jane Austen books for the TBR. We have read Emma and we have read Pride and Prejudice. On my own, I have also read Persuasion. And I just love Jane Austen's characters. I'm very excited to see what happens in this book. It's a new author to me too. I picked this for Manhattan to start All Hollow TBR for two reasons. First, because the author's name is Madeline, like Paris's friend Madeline. And then secondly, because this book is about acting in a TV show, and Joey is an actor who struggles a lot throughout the whole series to find a steady job. Even though for some of it, he's on Days of Our Lives as Dr. Drake Ramore. But overall, throughout Friends and the Joey spinoff, he is struggling to find steady work in acting. And I picture him being in this book, being in the movie about the Jane Austen characters, as the love interest in Pride and Prejudice, Billingsley, the other guy who is not Mr. Darcy, Bingley. For my general TBR for the month of January, these are the books I'm going to be reading. The first one is Brigands and Bread Knives. This could also go on to the Winterween TBR for the prompt for backdated TBR, backdated new release, because this is the third book in the series with Legends and Lattes, which came out at the beginning of October, and it focuses on Fern, who goes to resuscitate the bakery from Legends and Lattes, which has fallen into disrepair after many years. So I have loved the series with Legends and Lattes. It basically reimagines fantasy creatures like orcs and stuff like that, opening businesses in a small town. And the cafe in Legends and Lattes reminds me of Luke's Diner or Central Perk. So I am excited to read this. The next book that I am reading is Persepolis 2, which is the sequel to Persepolis. This is about Marjane Satrapi going to college and then coming back after college to Iraq when it's in the midst of going through the war. I really loved the first book in the series, which was called Persepolis, which is about her being born, growing up as the Iraq War is beginning. So I gave Persepolis 5 stars. And I think this book will probably get the same rating. Currently I am on The Croissant. The chapters in this book are not numbered, but I'm on page 69. The next book that I am reading is Cinder House by Freya Marsiki. This book was recommended to me by Sunny at a Sunny Book Nook, and she reviewed it in her recent reading wrap-up, where she reviewed the books that she read from August to December, and she read this book during Halloween because it's basically a retelling of Cinderella, where Cinderella comes back to haunt her family as a ghost. This is a short little novella. I just started a couple of hours ago, and I am on page 55. The next book I'm reading, I was gifted from my mother-in-law for Christmas. It's called Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingslover. This was on my top 23 books I read in 2023 list, so I haven't read it in a while. So I started this book on December 26th, and I am currently on page 51. Chapter 51, page 428. I anticipate to finish this book by Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, and the rating will not change. It will still be 4.5 stars. The next book that I am reading right now is Lana Ferguson's The Mating Game. So this is basically a wintry setting of a werewolf romance book, kind of similar to Mate by Ali Hazelwood, only set in winter. And Contractor Tess Covington has spent her entire life as a regular non-shifter human, so after she lands in the Denver ER with flu-like symptoms, it comes to a complete shock to be told that no, she's not sick, she's actually late presenting Omega Wolf Shifter. With her family in dire financial straits and a chance at her own television show on the line, she can't afford not to complete the renovation job she came for. And given that her newly emerged wolf is in danger of going into heat, she'll just have to do her best to follow her doctor's advice to keep away from alphas. Alpha wolf shifter Hunter Barrett has spent most of his adult life by a routine, and a big part of that involves staying clear of omegas after one stomped on his heart. So when the tiny contractor shows up at his place, smelling like the one thing he's determined to avoid, he thinks it must be some sort of cosmic joke. But with his lodge on the verge of failing, and this sweet-smelling omega being the only hope to turn things around, he's left with the other option than to grin and bear it. No other option than to grin and bear it. Set on avoiding each other as much as possible, they find things between them unexpectedly starting to heat up enough to thaw even the frostiest of hearts. Despite the pair going head over paws for each other, there's no ignoring that their fling has an expiration date. The more time to spend together, the more they realize they're playing a dangerous game, one where the only thing on the line is their hearts. So I have read 2 other books by Lana Ferguson. Her Loch Ness Monster romance book that came out in December 2024 called Under Lock and Key, which was a DNF because I just couldn't get behind that romance. I thought it was too weird. And then I recently read The Nanny by her in December, which is a romance book between Cassie and Aiden. And Cassie is very similar to Fran Fine from The Nanny, which was one of my other favorite 90s TV shows besides Friends and Boy Meets World and Step by Step and Family Matters. I am currently on chapter 19, page 207. The next book that I am reading is called The Temporary Roomie by Sarah Adams. This is the sequel to The Off Limits Rule, which I read last month and gave 4.5 stars to. This focuses on Drew, who is the roommate that the main character from The Off Limits Rule moves in with. And it's about the romance between him and Jessie, who is his next roommate, after the girl moves out to be in a relationship with his friend Cooper from the first book. I really love the development. I loved the dynamic in the first book between I think the name of the son in the Off Limits Rule is Liam. I can't find any reference to those characters in the other book. But yeah, I mean, I love the relationship dynamic between Drew and Jesse. The build up to their romance is really sweet. I am currently on chapter 22. Chapter 27, page 189. The final book on my TBR for this month at the current time is Roog by Mona Awad. This is a reread for the TBR for Winterween for the prompt, a book with red on the cover. I read this book earlier last year during Halloween. The other book that I have read by Mona Awad besides this one is Bunny, which I gave 3.5 stars to. The sequel to Bunny, We Love You, Bunny, which was 2.5 stars. All's Well, which was 4.5 stars. And I believe that's all I have read by Mona Awad up to this point. Is there anything else I'm missing that I've read? Oh, 13 Ways of Looking at a Fat Girl, which was another book I read from Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR. So I gave Roog 4 stars when I read it last year, and I can't wait to read it again for Gabby's readathon. I will be posting the link to Gabby's video where she talks about her readathon in the description. If you have read any of these books, please feel free to leave a comment on them below, and I will see you guys for my next reading progress video in 2 weeks. Have a great night, everybody.